What we'll try and do is, Sanjay and me, we've picked out excerpts from writings in this book, and we'll pull out some of those and get Rahul's opinion on those. And the first one that we've got is actually a pretty interesting one. Ed Smith's written an article that finds place in the book, and he says, as a lot of us have understood, as a lot of us who had the pleasure of knowing Rahul over the years have understood, he says, in that sense, Rahul Dravid is a true gentleman. Where many sportsmen flatter to deceive, Dravid runs deep. Still waters? Run deep. He's a man of substance, morally serious, intellectually curious. For all his understatement, he couldn't fail to convey those qualities to anyone who watched him properly. How does it feel to hear things written like that about you?
I think with Eddie, he was always good with words.
Even then, it's like a painter painting a scenery. Unless the scenery is not good enough, he doesn't have a good subject to paint.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, those are like really, big words. And
were you always an intellectual cricketer? I mean, are you comfortable with the tag intellectual assigned to you?
Yeah, I am comfortable with that tag because that's who I was. I mean, there's no hiding away from the fact that I did think deeply about this game, and I thought deeply about it because I loved it. I was curious about it right from a young age. It's all I wanted to do. It's something I grew up doing. So I wanted to know everything about it. I wanted to know how good I could become. I challenged myself. I asked questions. That's who I was, and that was probably my nature in some ways.
Do you think you're too different from some of the others?
I was who I was, and I know people are different. People are different. I'm not the only intense or intellectual cricketer. I've played with other cricketers who are have been pretty intense and intellectual themselves. I'd say Sanjay was maybe not to the obsessive level that I was sometimes, but he was. I mean, so there have been cricketers like that as well. So it's just I think the beauty of this game and the great thing about this game is it allows different people to succeed, and it allows everyone to express themselves. And I think in some ways this intellectualism or this curiosity of mine was a strength, was a big strength for me, as well as sometimes a weakness as well.
I think a good time for me to jump in, because this is something that I saw in Rahul very early. I think this exercise that we are currently having is basically Rahul reacting to what's been written about him. Normally you have certain cricketers reacting very quickly to what's written about them. He's got a few months to ponder on what's written about him. And just to take up from what Harsha has been talking to you, this is something I wrote on you, on Cricinfo. I love the caption, by the way, because for me that is what Rahul Dravid is all about. The grit to be great. I think that is where he's exceptional. I saw Sachin Tendulkar, who achieved greatness, but you could see the child prodigy in him when he was 16. I saw this guy when he played for the rest of India, Patiala. Ludhiana, on a difficult pitch.
See, he remembers. He remembers. Not Patiala, Ludhiana.
I'll probably tell you how Sanjay got out also.
But it was a difficult pitch, and this guy got a 90, and I could see that he wasn't a prodigy, but I could see that there was something exceptional about him. I must confess, Dravid's attitude at the start of his career concerned me. As young cricketers, we were often reminded to not think too much, and sometimes reprimanded by our coaches. I remember Dilip Vengsarkar telling me, "Jasta vichar karo nako, gupchup khel." And senior teammates for doing so. Being a thinker in cricket, it is argued, makes you complicate a game that is played best when it is kept simple. And there's one incident I'll never forget. I think it was Grand Oberoi somewhere, where Rahul was at a dinner table. I think Babu and everybody was, Srinath, everyone was having dinner, and this guy's practicing something at the dinner table. He was doing as if trying to maybe find a way to get rid of a batting flaw that we were thinking about at the time. And I remember being concerned about it at the time and sharing this with Srinath, where I could see a little bit of myself in you, obsessing over the flaws instead of being happy about the strengths. Did you ever feel this way, that perhaps you were overthinking, and were there times in your career where you felt, Rahul, stop thinking and just simplify things and get on with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you sort of hit the nail on the head when you say that there were times when I did complicate this game. When I sort of thought too much about it, But that was who I was, and I think thinking about the game and working on a lot of my weaknesses and overcoming them and the challenges that I faced. Like you say earlier, I mean, I wasn't the most prodigiously talented young cricketer. I was not. I knew that. I wasn't the most prodigiously talented cricketer in Karnataka, let alone India. You know, I wasn't. I mean, I could look around some of my teammates in the school team and I could say that, you know, they could probably hit a ball cleaner than I could. So I had to work through, you know, that lack of talent, so to speak. And you know, it wasn't a huge lack of talent, but you know, that lack of natural flair, and I had to work through that. So maybe right from a young age, I had to fight for things. I had to earn them. You know, runs never came easy for me, even at school or at a junior level. So I think that's where, maybe that's the sort of foundation of this thinking or this analyzing the game and trying to get better all the time. It was a strength because, you know, I was able to overcome a lot of things. I was able to push myself to limits that sometimes even I didn't think were possible. But the red flag to that was that, you know, it's a very thin line. It's a thin line between doing it and then crossing that line of overcomplicating it. And there were times in my career when I did, you know, probably cross that line, and that was a red flag to me. And I think over the years, as I got better...
Was there somebody who would tell you that you're crossing the line, or you would...
Yeah, I mean, I would realize it myself. A lot of people would, you know, senior players like you. I remember Sri and Anil, you know, constantly being on my ear and telling me, look, Rahul, sometimes, you know, you're thinking too much about it. Just relax, enjoy yourself a little more, smile a bit more. But as a young kid growing up, desperate to do well, it was not always the most natural thing for me to fall back on. I'd like to believe that as time went on and I became a more confident person, I traveled the world a little more, and I think you've probably seen me, you know, at a very early stage in my career. I'd like to believe as I grew up and I you know, sort of, you know, matured a little bit, I was able to manage it and change it. And I don't think that sort of basic trait of yours will ever go away, but I think I managed the whole process a lot better. And it was always a red flag for me. As sometimes I feel, you know, with some of the guys who can be too casual about their sport or who don't think about it at all, like you say, just go out and play naturally. I think the red flag for them is that they can cross that line of being too casual at times. So there is a red flag for each of us, and my red flag was, yes, that, you know, there were times, and I can remember tours in which I, you know, sometimes overcomplicated. I remember '99 in Australia when I had a terrible tour. I was so keen and so eager to do well in Australia, and I thought that I went there thinking I had done pretty well till then, and I thought, you know, if I can do well on this tour, it will sort of stamp me as this international player of repute, and I'll earn the respect of, you know, all my colleagues, and I'll earn the respect of everybody, and that's what I wanted to do. So I just, you know, I froze, and I just kept thinking, and I kept analyzing it, and, you know, maybe it took that sort of, those 3 test matches, and then we came to India, we did badly against South Africa, and that was the time I went to England, you know, where there was 6 months off. I went to England, and I think that freed me up a lot. Because I went to England, a completely new environment, you know, on my own, county cricket, not many people watching, lots of cricket, and I think that freed me up a lot. I think, you know, it helped me develop as a person.
Having to work harder than others to get the same result seems a bit familiar, not having the same flair. We've all been through it. Rohit Brijnath is one of my favorite cricket writers. We go back many, many years. And I've always looked at him and said, wow, in much the manner that you look at a sports person and say, wow, when he plays certain shots. And Rohit and Rahul talk about the most bizarre things sometimes. I've heard the two of them talk together. But here's something that Rohit wrote. And he said, life intrigued him, yours included. Not just his, yours included. When he came to Singapore once, he charmed my friends. All men?
Rohit?
No, Rohit is. But
Yeah, Rohit is.
anyway, I'll let you think about that. Isn't it interesting that he remembered Ludhiana and Patiala but is struggling to remember that? So when he came to Singapore once, he charmed my friends. One gave him batting advice and he smiled. What are you reading? He'd ask. What do you think? He'd query. Not about cricket, but tennis, toughness, politics. He'd linger in bookshops, stroll into theatres, sit in wildlife parks. Cricket was not the be-all and end-all of life for you.
I mean,
or was this a way to escape?
Yeah, it was a way to escape. I mean, I thought about cricket a lot, as we've just had 10 minutes discussing how much I thought about it. So, you know, I needed some way to get out of that, you know, bubble of mine. And I found in books and conversations with other people about other things, my release. It was my way of... I was a curious person, as you would see even in my cricket. And now that curiosity I needed to, you know, and this was my release. I think the books and the conversations with other people I like being challenged intellectually because, you know, I always felt that was, you know, that was interesting and always helped me learn something. But yeah, I mean, this was my release. I hated, at the end of the day, in the evening, talking to cricket with someone else because I was talking to myself about cricket all the time. So, you know, I needed to talk to somebody else about something else. And just a natural curiosity, I guess, about trying to, you know, get to know different things, and took a lot of the pressure off me. I found, you know, when I was reading books or speaking to people about other things and trying to find out what's interesting in their lives, you know, I didn't think about cricket, and then, you know, sort of refreshed me emotionally.
You once gave me a book to read that was so large, only you could have finished it. and I almost had to fib saying I read half of it because it was so large, it would take me 3 years to read. It was David Halberstam's book on Michael Jordan.
How could you not have read that in one sitting? What an amazing book. Harsha.
Now you know why he jumped on a half volley. And why
it's the kind of book you read in one sitting, man. It's I mean, Halberstam was
some people have to work harder for a living, Rahul.
Yeah, this was 1998 or 99, maybe, Sri Lanka trip, one of my first tours as commentator. I don't read much. I read the typical Sydney Sheldons and all that, you know, during college days. And suddenly I got into, you know, non-fiction, and I read this Freedom at Midnight. And I loved it, and I, you know, felt so proud that I read this kind of a book. So fleetingly, I just remarked to him, we had gone for dinner once, Sachin, you and Beachwadia somewhere. And I said, you must read this book, you know, Freedom at Midnight, good. He said, I've already read it, it's quite good. And then I realized, you know, 98, 99, I think 2-3 years into your international career, that this guy is different, you know, from us cricketers.
From us cricketers, right? Different from us sometimes too.
I mean,
are we embarrassing you?
No, no.
Okay.
I sort of, I read a little bit in school, and I read the Hardy Boys and the Archies.
No, you didn't.
My son reads better than me.
What a revelation. Rahul Dravid as a child read Hardy Boys.
Magnificent Seven, what a book.
You didn't read Charles Dickens and Jules Verne? No.
I think it was only in college, and you know, when I sort of went to college, and I met you know, my friends in college were actually people who didn't play the game, and you know, none of us were attending too much class. I wasn't, but when you're sitting in the chai shop in front, or when you're sitting in the cycle stand, when you should be in class, and your friends are, you know, discussing these various books, and you start, okay, can you give me one, or they'll say, why don't you read this? Maybe that's a great book, and you know, and then you sort of pick that up in college. And it was through college really that I started, you know, reading, and then and not for any other reason. I just found that then this reading, when I was on tours with the Karnataka Ranji Trophy team, was a great way for me to relax and switch off. And you know, I've never been someone who's been able to watch the TV too much. I just find that even when I'm watching TV, I'm constantly thinking about cricket, or you know, batting, or what's going to happen tomorrow. But with books, I found that I was able to escape from it.
In case you become a journalist, you'll discover that the standard journalism practice is you ask 20 questions and then pick up one answer. So the answer of the day so far is you read Hardy Boys. Anyway, so here's another. And this is from someone who got to know Rahul as he went along, got to know him well enough to marry him eventually, and did something very unusual. We've all known Vijita over the years, and when I first saw an article byline Vijita, I said, no, someone's conned her into doing this, because she'd be the last person to actually write an article on Rahul, knowing the kind of person she's been over the years. But she said something, and obviously she's got the inside view of it all better than any one of us could. And she said something interesting, and we'll read out a little extract from that. Only once, I remember, she says, he returned from a test and said, shucks, I shouldn't have done something. I got a bit angry today, once. I lost my temper in the dressing room. He wouldn't say more. Many months later, Viru told me that Rahul had actually thrown a chair that day. I'd never seen him like that, and he threw a chair, not because we'd lost, but because of how we'd lost. He's always been even-tempered on good days and bad. He never grumbles, and it's very, very difficult to understand what he's feeling, because he can internalize everything. He's talking cricket, obviously, right? So, he often said that to succeed in international cricket for such a long time, I've only thought about me and my cricket, but I'm learning to be unselfish. Do you have to learn to be selfish too, or?
Well, I've always felt that, you know, being a cricketer, I've always had things done for me, in the sense that, you know, I think growing up, one of the great things about cricket and playing the sport that I did, and at the level that I did, is that there were so many people around you actually trying to help you get better. You know, whether it was coaches, it was physiotherapists, trainers, they were being paid to actually help you do something better. I don't really see that happening in any other profession. I mean, you know, it's not really the case elsewhere. But the beauty of, you know, sport and the sport that I played is that there were so many people around me always helping me to get better. Everywhere you went, you know, you put your bags out of the room, you get it at the next place. You know, in a way, it's you need to be that sort of single-minded, and that you need that dedication, and that's why you have, you know, a whole group of people around you that support you and help you. Obviously, in time, you know, I think selfish to the extent that yes, I mean, in certain ways, it's a single-mindedness and a certain amount of you know, dedication
It's actually
to
a
that.
better word. Single-mindedness is probably the more appropriate word to selfish, but not getting angry, because I can understand the pressures that at some point you're going to be frustrated. Do you have to train yourself not to get angry? Because one of the things sports people say is that if you've got an angry opponent, you've got an easy opponent. But anger on the field, anger off the field, how do you control that as a person?
I think partly it's natural. It's quite natural. I don't think I've been someone who's got angry very quickly, even when I was young. It's not something that I've had to consciously work on. But then I did realize that, you know, when I did get angry a few times, or I did try and get outside my own cocoon, or if someone was able to penetrate that balloon when I was playing, or, you know, I didn't play well, or I didn't achieve. I was almost playing for the wrong reasons. You know, there were a lot of times I would try and prove someone wrong, or I would try and play for, you know, he said something to me, so I should do well, and I would never do well. Because that was not motivation enough for me. I needed it to
But
be
you
more
did
internal.
feel that way sometimes, and you had to
Yeah, I
overcome
mean, I tried to, you know, sort of, sometimes even if I didn't, I would try and manufacture that, you know, just to see whether that's something that motivated me, but it didn't. You know, I think it's always been a bit of an internal thing for me. It's not really about, so, I mean, I never, I mean, I got angry then in
And you threw the chair.
Yeah, I mean,
you threw the chair.
I think partly
Did
with
you throw
myself. I mean,
did you throw it elegantly?
I think I smashed it or something, but I think I was partly...
thrown it technically very correctly.
I was partly angry with myself. I mean, I'll be honest. I mean, we were leading that series 1-0 against England. We go into Bombay in the test match. You know, I won the toss and I bowled first, which I don't think in hindsight was the, you know, most smartest decision. But and then we batted, you know, terribly. We bowled badly on the first day on a wicket that did help the seamers a little bit. We batted sort of thing. But in the end, I just felt that it was an anger with myself as well, because I hadn't batted particularly well. I thought I'd made a wrong decision up front, and then to end up, you know, capitulating on the last day when we could easily have played out for a draw, I thought was just, I mean, I just maybe got a bit upset that day, and yeah.
Did you surprise yourself?
No, I mean, I used to always, I mean, I'm a pretty hard taskmaster on myself, and so, you know, I've got angry with myself a lot of times, so I know what it is like to get angry. But maybe external, you know, I've probably not been someone who's maybe internalized things too much sometimes, and you know, sometimes it's like, sometimes Vijita tells me, babe, sometimes you just got to let things out and, you know, have a go at someone. And I think that's a better way, because at least the other person suffers, not you. If you just internalize the whole thing, you're suffering all the time.
Okay, this is about captaincy, that experience that you had for a short time. And this is Siddharth Monga in the book, who's made an observation. Naturally intelligent, a balanced individual, a fan of Mark Taylor's captaincy, Dravid was arguably India's most tactically proficient and aggressive on-field captain. There was something delightfully unpredictable about India under him. In November 2003, standing in as captain, Dravid opened an one-day international innings with a spinner in the famous 2.5-day test match in Mumbai. Just tell us your experience about captaincy of Indian cricket, because it's something that you didn't seem to want it after a while. So just that phase when you were India captain with a coach who wasn't willing to, you know, play second fiddle, or he had a personality which somehow came out a bit too much.
Well, I think, I mean, I enjoyed, I'd like to get one thing straight, is that I loved and I thought it was a great honor and a privilege to captain my country. It, you know, I dreamt as a kid of, you know, I dreamt as a kid of growing up and wanting to play for India, and, you know, that's all I wanted to do. And to be able to actually captain your country was a huge, you know, privilege and honor. And in some ways, I'd had a taste of what it would be like, because for 4.5 years before that I was vice captain. I was vice captain to Saurav, and captained a little bit in a few phases as well. But when I got the job, I took it on with an enthusiasm and an energy that that sort of in some ways I felt was needed at that stage, and in a way I wanted to do it. I know that in the end I sort of gave it up because of that very reason, because I took it up with a certain amount of enthusiasm and an energy and a passion and a desire to do it. And I felt at that stage when I gave it up after that somehow over that period that had gone. Maybe it was just the amount of cricket we played at that period, some of the up and down results that we had. To be fair, we had some good results as well, and we had some crushing disappointments as well. So all that maybe had a toll on me. So at that stage when I gave it up, I was just not enjoying it. And I've tried to tell this to people, that I was getting up in the morning and in some of those one-day games and thinking, oh God, here's another game of cricket. And that I had never felt like that before. I had never felt like that before about a game of cricket.
Is it a tough job, captaining Indian cricket? Or let me also ask you whether you also have to be built differently to lead Indian cricket for a period of time?
I think it's a tough job. There's no doubt about it. I think it's a tough job. It's a challenging job. There's no doubt about it. And there's a lot of stuff that happens outside the field that you need to be able to deal with quite well. In hindsight, there are a lot of things that I can look back on and say, look, maybe you could have done that better. But I don't know of anyone who would look back on any stint that he's done as captain and say that, look, maybe I couldn't have done this or that better. So,
but you never got the feeling now, after so many years, that even if I would have changed a bit, it would still be a job that I was not meant to do. It wasn't the kind of job that Rahul Dravid, the way he is built, can do it? Or you think now that perhaps if I had done things differently, I would have made a pretty good job of it?
I'd like to believe I still did a pretty good job of it. I'm not saying, obviously, a better job of it, maybe. Yeah,
long
sure.
What I'm saying is basically a long sort of tenure of, some of the kinds that Ganguly or Dhoni have had, a long run as Indian captain.
Yeah, maybe if I had paced it out better, maybe some other results had gone our way. Sometimes, when some certain results don't go your way, especially the World Cup, it takes a whole big toll on you emotionally. So, if maybe some of those results had gone better, maybe my frame of mind would have been better. I would have been able to carry that on for a bit longer.